everyone, and welcome to another episode of Building Family Resiliency, Community Voices, Community Perspectives. I'm Deb Ottman, the host of this podcast series. And today I am so happy to welcome two people who are quite special to me, colleagues of mine, the co-leader of this project, Dr. Jennifer Hall-Lande, and the Region 11 coordinator here in the Twin Cities of Help Me Grow, Anna Paulson. Jen is a licensed clinical psychologist and a researcher with the Institute on Community Integration, and she is very involved in supporting efforts around autism, identifying it early in very young children, and supporting our professionals' understanding of it and other disabilities that we find are making themselves known in over the course of the lifespan. And in addition to all this busy work that she's doing, Jen is the parent of two daughters. And our other guest, Anna, is, as I mentioned, the Region 11 coordinator for Help Me Grow. And prior to coming to that role, Anna spent many, many years in teacher preparation programming here at the University of Minnesota, as well as having a long and rich career in supporting the deaf and hard of hearing communities. And Anna, too, is a parent of two children. And so today, welcome to both of you, and thank you so much for joining me. So let's get started. Our topic today is understanding these two initiatives of Learn the Signs, Act Early, and Help Me Grow. And we know that both of them are aimed toward supporting the adults that are monitoring babies and young children's development, as well as offering actions that can be taken when things may seem off track, but they are very different. And so I'm hoping that each of you can share a little bit about your projects that you are working on and share how they work together. So Jen, let's start with you. Can you share a little bit of the goals and the aims of Learn the Signs, Act Early?
Yes, I'd be happy to. Well, first of all, Deb, thank you for having us today. It is just a joy to be here today and to share about our projects and the important work we're doing in the community. So yes, as you asked, I'm happy to share Learn the Signs, Act Early is a project that we work on. In many ways, it's a public health project. It is sponsored by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. And what it really is about, it's about educating people that touch the lives of young children, mainly parents, but also childcare providers and healthcare providers, educating them on the signs of healthy development, what developmental milestones are, and third, and I think very important, is acting early if there's a concern. And that's really a key part of our mission. To put my researcher hat on, the research is quite sound that the earlier we intervene with children, the better their life outcomes. And honestly, in many ways, the better it is for their family. And so our goal is to talk about healthy development and then really help families, parents, childcare providers understand if there are concerns, how they can access resources and act early. Yeah. Another important part of our work, and I think perhaps why we're here today, is we partner with organizations and other systems, and we really join forces together because many of us have a shared mission to make the lives of children and families better, to help get kids connected to services and supports. And one of our most valuable partnerships is with Help Me Grow Minnesota. And so my colleague here today, Anna, is going to talk a little bit about our partnership, our work, our collaboration. But again, it's great to be here, and thanks for having us, Deb.
Yeah, thank you. And I have to just remark and respond to the idea that not only is responding to any red flags or concerns caregivers and parents may have about a child, better for the child. We know that is unequivocally true because of brain development. But the notion that it makes it easier for families, and I would imagine that it makes it easier not only in maybe putting some puzzle pieces or periods at the end of what had been questions for them, but also giving them time to create what may be a new normal for their family, and reframing what their hopes and dreams are for that child. Not that their hopes or expectations are any more diminished, but certainly understanding how they can then work with that individual child to best support their optimal development. So I really appreciate you bringing that point up. Thank you.
Absolutely. And if I can add one more thing to your point, there's really been a cultural shift in our field. We used to hear a lot of wait and see. A parent might be concerned, and
Absolutely.
perhaps a healthcare provider would say, you know, how about we wait and see if your child's not talking? How about we wait and see and watch? And we really take a different approach. We say,
Mm-hmm.
let's monitor development from the start. Again,
Mm-hmm.
let's act early if there are concerns, and let's really err on the side of getting children and families support as soon as possible to help optimize their developmental outcomes. We really have a
Yeah.
sort of a paradigm shift in the field around that let's really get kids in as early as possible. And you're right.
Right.
Research also tells us often the earlier we get children in, the better it is, not just for the child, but for the family as well.
Yeah. Thanks for that. And so, Anna, this is a great time to bring you into the conversation. I think that this joint mission that both Learn the Signs, Act Early, and Help Me Grow share is so beautifully acted out and modeled here in Minnesota. And I know that I'm a bit of a biased
We'll definitely take
observer.
that compliment. We will
Yeah,
definitely
but
take that compliment because as Jennifer has come from the public health sector, Help Me Grow comes from the education sector. We are
okay,
funded through Part C of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act with those dollars. But our
got it.
missions are very similar to educate parents and caregivers on the developmental areas of children, cognitive or thinking and processing, physical, large and small muscle motor skills, communication, talking and listening, understanding,
Sure.
social, emotional, the big one right now after COVID, of course, interacting and behavior, and finally adapting, eating, dressing, getting themselves ready. So the goal
Yeah.
of Help Me Grow is similar to Learn the Signs, is to help people who are the main people in our babies' lives recognize a typical, if you will, child development track, though it's
Yep.
different for every family, but there are some typical trajectories that we look for, and to give them the idea of where to go in order to connect with the services that they need through their school district. So we
Yeah.
dovetail really well in our public awareness. We dovetail really well in our shared mission. Jen and I have worked very hard to make sure we're not duplicative and very responsible with our funders and our funding, but to make sure that we get our tentacles out to where they need to be. I just want to really clarify that Help Me Grow is a brand. It's a brand name. It's a logo. It's where we hope families will go to get information about development. But Help Me Grow does not provide service. We are not the wonderful early interventionists that come to your home. We're not the people that are hired by the school district. We are the people who you come to learn about development, to get some ideas on how to support healthy development. What can I do as a mom or a caregiver to boost that baby into that next stage of development?
Sure.
And then what we do is say, gosh, if you have concerns, let's connect you to your school district. And the school
Okay.
district will send those experts to do that screening, the evaluation, and if needed, the early intervention service provision. So
Got
just
it.
to clarify, at the very beginning in 2012 in Minnesota, we had about 3,600 referrals through Help Me Grow.
Wow.
In 2021, we had 22,000 referrals.
Holy cow.
Referrals don't mean we have services. Not all kids are going to have home intervention. 22,000 kids had the opportunity to find out if in fact they were just following that developmental trajectory. They were doing well. Yeah. So
that is, yeah. You know, I want to go
10 years.
Yes, that's incredible, and it suggests that everyone, and particularly the adults who are important to children in their lives, are really beginning to understand the critical need for monitoring and following how our littlest ones develop. And something that struck me, I just want to revisit that you said way at the beginning, Anna, is the fact that while Learn the Signs Act Early is funded through a health department, that Help Me Grow is funded through education funds. And I think this is really, to me, it illustrates what's happening policy-wise. But what it also suggests is that all of these systems recognize that when it comes to little people's development in particular, we cannot say, oh, this is an education issue, this is a health issue. We are looking at the whole child, because children their development needs to be considered in all domains, and all domains inform us as to how well they're doing.
Sorry to interrupt. I think it's also it's a hopeful conversation.
Exactly.
We're bridging silos, we're bridging community resources, we're bridging all the things that families need to be overall healthy and overall supported.
Right.
We're here to lift everybody up together. And I think that
exactly,
working with Jen and her team and working with our parent connectors, it feels right.
Right.
yes.
Yeah, families and children don't live in silos.
No.
Health is part of their life, education, nutrition. We are working together. We realize we shared a mission. If I think of it as sort of a three-legged stool: awareness, education, and connection. I come at it from a health angle, Anna from an educational angle. Of course, those worlds overlap very much.
Yes.
But how do we, instead of working in parallel, how do we work together? How are we better together? We're smarter together. We're more efficient together. So it just makes sense on behalf of families and children in Minnesota.
It really does. And so, Anna, you just mentioned something about, helping families and offering them the support and the resources they know. And I've heard about Help Me Connect. And so is this at all related to Help Me Grow? And if it is, I'm wondering if you can just give us a quick understanding of what the difference between the two are.
Sure. So Help Me Grow is that place of connection where we connect families who have concern to their school district for more support.
Okay.
Help Me Connect, like Jennifer's program, well, I take that back. They are funded through the Preschool Development Grant, which is education, but they are housed at the Department of Health. So another opportunity to break down silos.
Sure.
Help Me Connect is a website. It's an online navigator that connects pregnant and parenting families, people with young children birth to age 8, connects them to services in their local communities. So in the online navigator, you'll put in your zip code and what you want to know about. Maybe you want to know about transportation. Maybe you want to know about housing. Families need a lot of resources to stay afloat.
Sure.
And where do we find those? Help Me Connect is a connector, a navigator to your local community resources. that support healthy child development and family well-being.
That's terrific. And I think for our listeners, we know that this podcast series is intended to support the helpers who are working alongside of families.
Yeah.
I think that's a great resource for them to know about as well. So thanks for clarifying that. Appreciate
I want
it.
to add one more thing about Help Me Grow.
Yeah.
It is free. Anything that comes through your school district is free. And we are not concerned at all about your immigration status. We're concerned about babies and children and getting them the resources that the families and the children need. So if child care providers who might be listening, or teachers who might be listening, public health people who might be listening, please emphasize that immigration status and money doesn't prevent you from getting services.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's a really critical point. And good for all of us to know. Well, this really helps, I think, kind of clarify what the two projects are aiming to do and how you work in conjunction with one another. And since both of you share, I should say, both of these projects share the same goal of supporting families so that they can support their child's healthy development, we know that everybody, no matter who we're talking to or in what field they're involved, have been really influenced and impacted by the pandemic. And just the fact that we've all had to shelter in place, we've had childcare stopping and starting, we've had schools stopping and starting, we've had visits to the doctor that have become more difficult or have had to happen via telehealth. That's added such a new level of complexity and a whole host of barriers or challenges for both families and the professionals that are helping to serve them. And so, Anna, I'm really curious to know how did the pandemic impact your organization's way of working within all these various public sectors? Did you have to make any changes to the organization in order to adjust? And if you did, what was the reasoning behind that?
Sure. Well, I'll start by backing up a little bit and just really highlighting that the dollars from federal education through statute are really focused on traditionally marginalized communities, children from tribal nations, children who are homeless, highly mobile, food insecure, just really hitting the communities that also were most impacted by COVID and the pandemic. If we look at all the studies and all the conversations and everything we've heard, those communities have really had a greater degree of barriers than others. So I did join Help Me Grow mid-pandemic, but we shifted like the rest of the world to a virtual platform where instead of showing up to events where families otherwise traditionally are out and about, we've met them online in virtual virtual sessions, if you will. We've had a larger presence on social media. Not my favorite thing, but has definitely been a positive shift.
Oh,
good. We've also done a lot more training through this virtual platform. I've been able to reach out to public health staff. I've been able to reach out to childcare providers, to different conferences and community events, just letting them know all about what we're supposed to be doing, child development, what to do if you have concerns, who to call, and what the benefits of early intervention are. So really, like everybody else, we shifted to online. And now we're really hoping to do what we know is best, reach families where they are in person, out in the community, so we can reestablish our relationships and, that platform of safe space to ask questions. So
I have to say, I so appreciate that you brought in the notion of relationship and safety, because I imagine that must be a really big part of the work. And I'm curious, are there any things that in all the shifting that you did, and as you've looked back at their, the relative success or not of some of these shifts, are there any new practices that you introduced that you do plan on maintaining?
Well, I think Jen and I both worked pretty hard to, I don't know, hold that thought.
Okay.
Jen, got anything for that one?
Yeah, I mean, it's such an important question. I think we were really forced to innovate, as Anna said, and to look at things and shift and do things a little differently. I absolutely agree that at the heart of our model before were in-person relationships out in the community, building connections where families are at. And of course, like many, we had to shift virtually, and we learned ways that was done well, good ways to reach families in that way. In some ways, you learn through trial and error a little bit on that.
Absolutely.
But then also realizing that it opened up the door of accessibility for some families, perhaps made it harder for others. But there are some families that were able to engage us online, and yet at the same time, while we saw richness in that, we're excited to get back out, hopefully this summer, to more of that in the community, in person connecting. As Anna said, we did trainings online. We were able to do a webinar series for parents and families. We were hoping to do, and we did do, some professional development. But again, we were forced to pivot and learn and grow alongside. And like many, we're reflecting on the pandemic right now. What can we take forward and continue doing? I think we're always going to need to have a robust virtual and online platform. I think social media is, of course, here to stay. Those are efficient ways to reach a lot of families. But again, we're always striving to who isn't at the table? Who do we need to reach? Who haven't we reached yet?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. I found it really interesting in our new social media world, the different types of families that go to different types of social media. We have a lot of grandparents who really like Facebook, and it's nice to have grandparents' eyes on development as well.
You're right. Maybe trusted adults.
Maybe we wouldn't have reached them had they, we just been at an event or at the Ordway, at any of the downtown Minneapolis events. But, we've been lucky enough to reach some really strong, rich grandparents out through Facebook.
Thank you for adding that. I like this. I think what I'm hearing both of you say then is that it doesn't have to be an either or. As we go back to maybe picking up some of the things that we really missed that were in place pre-pandemic, we learned that there were new ways and sometimes better ways, depending on the particular needs of an individual family, that we can make it be a both and instead of an either or. And
that's what I was going to say, Deb, a both and. That I don't think there's this clear point of demarcation. The pandemic, for example, saying now we're past that. Now we're going to go back to business as usual. I think systems change and evolve, and so is our work. And now we say, what were some things we learned? What are some virtual platforms that reach families and reach a diverse group of families? But then how can we bring back some of that in-person relationship building out in the community work as well? That we're going to keep a lot of what we learned, but then, also go back to some of what we know works well for families. Again, both and.
Right. And that leads me into a question I've been wanting to ask Anna. And I'm so glad you talked about, connecting with families, because we know that, as we've just discussed, that we need to, and we can give ourselves permission to change and improve the way we operate, to keep what works, toss what doesn't, and build on our successes. all toward the goal of making those strong connections with families. And Anna, there's a piece of programming that I know Help Me Grow does that I'm really particularly interested in hearing more about. And that is your parent connectors. I'm hoping that you can share a little with us about how the parent connectors are impacting Help Me Grow's work and in achieving the goals that you're hoping to reach.
Yeah, absolutely. They are an amazing group of parents. We have the Parent Connector model is actually not new. Learn the Signs, Act Early, and Help Me Grow have partnered in supporting this exact model for quite some time. We've had the
Right.
opportunity this year because, frankly, we saved a lot of money going virtual. So we had
I
some
can
money
imagine.
to hire some parent connectors. And a parent connector is actually somebody who is from a specific community. The demographics of Minnesota show that we have a large Latinx, Somali, Hmong, and Karen communities here and especially in our Twin Cities. We also have a large community from the Native American tribes, the tribal nations, and from the African American community. So this year we were able to attract and recruit, if you will, parent connectors from each of those communities. They have been prepared to tell their own stories of raising children who benefited from early intervention. They've been, schooled, if you will, on the developmental milestones and some of the strategies they can share with families on how to support development. And their whole goal is to walk side by side and really be that ally for families. Sounds like they're allies for the programs because, we pay them. But honestly, their goal is to be allies for families, the people that might encourage them to learn more, share more, be present with their children and make sure that their children are tracking well. So I can't say enough about how amazing these people, currently women are, but we certainly have a father as well.
Right. Well, the thing that strikes me as I hear you share this is that, so you are both parents, as am I. And I recall I'm past the active parenting stage with my children, but boy, I remember those years, and I do have a son with disabilities, how critical it was for me to have a community of support and a place to go to talk to people, to other parents, primarily moms, of course, because I'm a mom. And, I'd be able to bounce questions or thoughts and get ideas. And there is not only a sense of safety in that, but there's a sense of finding your tribe, I think.
And I think specifically with this group, I'm sorry to interrupt,
No, that's
specifically
okay.
with this group, because, I'm a child of immigrant parents as well. And you have your people who share your language and share your home and share your immigration story. It's a little bit easier to connect at that level that you need to connect at when you're going to trust people with decisions you're making about your children. And so there's nobody from my personal professional life that can do the work of these peers, of these friends, of these community members. So
absolutely. And Anna, the understanding of development through a cultural lens, speaking the same language as the parents in the community. You're right, Deb. There's tremendous power in parent to parent connection. There's trust and shared lived experiences. And, an interesting point that Anna is right, that we provide training around Help Me Grow and Learn the Signs, Act Early and child development and healthy developmental milestones and resources. But it's really a bi-directional relationship because we're learning from them as well as these parent connectors, parent leaders are out in the community connecting with families, hearing their stories, hearing their needs. They come back to help me grow and learn the science act early and say, here's some of the feedback we're hearing. And this is what is helpful to parents. This is what they need. And so while they're helping parents, in turn, we're learning as well how to provide better, more culturally competent services and supports.
That is an excellent point. Thanks for bringing that up, Jen. And the other thing, this leads me into the next question I would like to ask you, Jen. But I'm going to frame it first in this comment. So as I have been sharing all along in some of our other episodes, is that one of the goals of our project is not only to raise awareness about Learn the Science Act early in order to support families and little ones, but also to help these families, especially if there are concerns, and most particularly if they are among those families that are in a marginalized community, that we can help support their resilience by our behaviors and our actions. And I know just, from our research and the work that I do, that learning to become an advocate and to have voice and agency in our own life is a great way to, it's a great proof to a person that they do have resiliency. And I think as if not more important, we know from work by Ann Maston, among many other important researchers, is that at the core of resiliency lies the notion that people have supportive relationships in their life. That is really key. And so as we look at this topic of resiliency, Jen, can you share a little bit about how you see
Sure.
and how you think about this this notion of resiliency, and how does your project and Anna's project, Help Me Grow and Learn the Signs, how do you think resiliency is supported through these two efforts?
Well, thanks, Deb. I think it's actually a great question. When I think broadly about resiliency, my brain goes to really resiliency is the ability to grow and thrive in the face of life's challenges. It's not the absence of challenge, it's how you respond to it, right? And certainly these past few years have given us ample opportunity to respond to life's challenges. And so I really see our role as we connect it to our work is supporting families, supporting resiliency in families, supporting them to grow and thrive and learn together. I see our parent connector model as a model of resiliency. We have parents out telling their stories of saying, hey, I've been through this. I saw my child had delays. I sought the services and supports I need. I consulted my community. We were able to get some of the supports, some of the early intervention, and now our family is stronger. Our child is developing in a healthy way. I just think it is a model in action of supporting resiliency. I also think as professionals, we also can be resilient when we're talking about pivoting to a virtual space, changing our practices. And in terms of the systems we work in, how can we be responsive to parent needs and adapt to the challenges, the changes, the needs of parents and families? We aren't asking families to change for us, but saying, what do you need? What can we do to help support your child's growth and development? How can we work alongside you and collaborate together to make our services and supports better for you, more responsive to your needs, more culturally appropriate? So I think as parents, we're resilient. We know our children are resilient, but we also know parents and families. I will tell you, the research says, while it can be hard initially, in terms of when we talk about early developmental delays and early diagnoses, there's a lot of research out there that says eventually it's healthier for parents to find their community, to sort of understand, for many parents, if we are looking at a diagnosis or a developmental disability, to put a name to it and have a path forward for many parents that can help support resiliency and getting the support that their child needs. So I think we look at it at a lot of different levels. And again, as systems, I think we need to grow and change and be resilient as systems and responsive. I guess that's a long answer, Anna. What do you have to say? Do you have anything to say about that, or did I cover it?
I think you covered it quite well. Thank you.
Yeah. So basically what I'm hearing you, Jen, what I'm hearing you say is that we as the helpers in this equation can continue to strive to work at meeting families where they are.
Absolutely.
Rather than where we want them to be. And that,
no,
I think.
Yeah. And it's not one formula. It's not a one size fits all.
Right.
Resiliency looks different with different people across different families and perhaps even across different communities.
Right.
And so, I think, to your point, not only meeting families where they're at, but listening to what their needs are.
Yes.
And how we can work together with them to help their children, learn, grow, and thrive.
Yeah. And I think the other, especially when we think about families, and each family is so unique, each person is so unique, what may look like resiliency to one person, it can mean something so completely different to another, to other populations. Needing to be resilient when it comes to finding secure housing, secure food, being able to know that your basic needs and safety are being met. You can't attend to some of these additional pieces until we know that's in place. And it's constantly changing and shifting depending on the people with whom we're working. So I really appreciate the fact that you brought it down to that level of the discussion. And so as we think about all these different families and their children, as from where both of you stand, and I recognize that you are not representing the entire early childhood special education system or the early childhood health system, but from where you stand with your experiences, what might you think about with respect to what you would most like parents and families to know?
So I'll take that. I'll take that cue. I can say that I had the opportunity to do some filming, and we filmed 5 families telling their story, their help me grow story, if you will, recognizing a delay and knowing that maybe there's some steps they can take to have a better outcome. And in listening to their stories, the one thing that really resonated again and again is that they really had to listen to their own instincts, that they had to feel that parent inside gut reaction, something's just not quite. And though they had, some of them had the assurance of even a physician, some of them had the assurance of family members that there was nothing to be concerned about, inside there was something that said, I need to take one more step because I don't feel quite right. So I think that if you think about all families, all cultures, I would say that that gut instinct of maybe I just need to know a little bit more before I can let this rest is one that I hope that they feel comfortable and confident to follow. And I actually am really hopeful that we have in front of them easily accessible information, whether it be person to person, brochure, Facebook post, whatever, crosses their path at the time that they need it. I hope that between Learn the Signs, Act Early, and Help Me Grow, we have something that just resonates with them at the time that they need it, because it's really an on time thing. It's not a, gosh, I saw that 6 months ago. Where was that? No, it's kind of about, this needs to keep crossing my path, crossing my desk, if you will, so that I know where to find it if and when. So I guess
Yeah.
that's what I'm hoping, is that parents will just follow their instinct.
You know, that makes me think of something that I heard an early interventionist say once at it was at a conference that I was attending. And this was with respect to working with families and our recognizing that we need to walk alongside them wherever they are. And it made one of the things that the points that she raised is just because we offer information once or extend a hand once, that may not be enough because the family may not be there yet. And that we continue to offer. So, for example, those Help Me Grow resources or those Learn the Sign Act early resources, that if we do it in a way that's sensitive and culturally appropriate for that family, that we can continue to put those resources in their path so that when they are to the point that they are ready, they're there and they're able to make good use of them.
Yeah, and there's enough variety of the options that they take what they need when they need it, right?
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think another piece that's interesting around that, and if I put my researcher hat on, one thing when I'm out talking to parents that I think it can be helpful is that developmental delays in the early childhood years are actually remarkably common. It's what the research tells us that approximately 1 in 4 children are at risk for developmental delay. And depending on what research site you look at, perhaps 1 in 6 will have an identified disability of some sort throughout their lifetime or diagnosis. And so when we think of it that way, that we're regularly monitoring development, we're checking in, we're celebrating development and developmental milestones, but that, many children have a delay in speech. Motor delays can be remarkably common, that it really is a natural part of sort of the human condition. And
Yes.
as is getting support and reaching
Right.
out. We don't have all the answers as parents. Parents have a lot of expertise and knowledge. So do communities. So do
Yes.
professionals. How can we all work together with the strength, but also needs of children and families to collaborate and support them? And again, get them the services and supports early rather than later. We hope that we don't always default to wait and see, that we say, okay,
Right.
you have concerns. I want to listen to parents. I want to hear their concerns. I want to bring in the resources and tools and supports to get them the help that they need to support and help their child thrive, and also really to help the family feel connected and supported.
Yeah. Such great wisdom here. And so finally, just to end our conversation, what are the final maybe parting thoughts that you have for those of us that are on the helping side of the equation? What things do you think are most important for the helpers, the professionals to know so that they can authentically and in an appropriate way for that family, that particular family, support them and walk alongside them? And whoever wants to jump in, go ahead.
Go ahead, Anna.
Sure. I think just briefly, I would say, there's so much. There's so much.
I know.
I'm sure Jennifer has
big
taught
ask.
many classes on this one, right? It's a big ask. I was saying earlier that as a parent myself, the journey was very empowering and very humbling. And
Yes.
and I think that as professionals in the field, whether you're a childcare worker or whatever your hat is, like, just take it off. Like you're not actually there all the time to be the expert. You're actually there to be part of this person's journey. You landed here to hear from them, to learn from them, something that maybe you could take to another family. There's so many opportunities in our work that frankly is a little selfish. We are taking in people's lives and people's stories. And then we have the opportunity to use all this richness to move it forward. And so I think that, of course, you have your professional background. Of course, you have your knowledge, your licenses and your certifications. But maybe this time, be part of what they're learning, relearn it, and just be present. It's a hard job. I'm going to say that anybody who's in early intervention, it's a heartfelt role. And so I'm sure Jennifer can say something about the importance of self-care in this journey for all the professionals, because, you know, we all need our breaks. But try to remember that
I love that.
Expertise of the parent is so valuable.
Love that. Thanks. Jen, do you have any parting thoughts?
Well, Anna covered it so well, but I agree. I think as a professional, listen and observe as much as you share. Listen to the family's story and their experiences. Really try to seek to understand of what their needs are, and how you can be a collaborator. And speaking of collaboration, I guess as I pivot to professionals or a professional role, it sounds cliche, but be open to collaborating. I know, again, we don't own all the wisdom, but in many cases too, in the case, for example, of Help Me Grow and Act Early, we're working towards the same goal and mission. How can we be responsible stewards, of not just the funds, but in terms of how do we work smarter? And I think our collaboration is an example of we're better together, we're smarter together, and we're even better when we bring in many voices, such as the voices and the perspectives of our parent connectors. And I guess I'll venture to say we don't know it all. we never will. We never will, but we're always learning and growing and evolving and changing to meet the changing needs of the families we serve.
So as I think about our very final wrap up, I'm wondering if there is anything else that you'd like to share with people who are supporting families. What are the top ideas that we've covered here today that you want to make sure our listeners leave with? Jen, let's start with you.
Well, thanks, Deb. It's hard to distill this down.
Yeah.
But I will try. I think in terms of the work that we do and that I do with Learn the Signs Act Early, I kind of go back to our key mission and I say, again, make monitoring development, watching development, celebrating development, a regular part of working with children, with working with families. Talk about it. Talk about developmental milestones and strengths, but also needs.
Sure.
I think I definitely want to emphasize act early if there are concerns. Where a key point of our work is we don't wait and see. We observe, we act early if there's concern, we help connect families and children to the supports that they need. And as I said earlier, developmental delays in the early childhood years, it's part of the continuum. It's remarkably and in fact, surprisingly to many families common. When we think of delays, we think of things like speech. So absolutely, don't act early if there's concerns. And 3, collaborate. The theme of what we talked about today. We're better together. We're better when we pool and share resources. So as professionals, cross those lines, break down those silos, and work together on a shared mission. It will benefit your work and it will benefit families.
Yeah. And if I could add one thing that I really appreciate about the Learn the Signs Act Early project from, a national standpoint, is that we as the helpers have the opportunity to connect parents to resources on their website that it delivers the developmental milestones in ways that are just, they're friendly, It's not intimidating, it's age appropriate, and it helps the little storybooks that you can get, the free app, which is an amazing tool for,
The milestone
especially I
tracker
think for
app.
parents.
Yeah,
Yes.
a wonderful
Um,
tool for parents. Yes.
yeah, that's something that I would highly encourage the helpers and families to go out and seek and take a look at.
Absolutely. And Deb, if I can make a point for in my summary is go out and seek the resources. You brought up the Learn the Signs Act Early website. When I'm practicing, when I was parenting, I wish I'd known about all the free resources. You mentioned the
Oh,
free
I
developmental
know.
storybooks. You can order as many as you like on the CDC website and use that with families. Really take advantage of all of the free resources to help support healthy
Right,
development. And yes,
right.
the app is wonderful, the Milestone Tracker app, a wonderful tool that really empowers families to monitor
Mm-hmm.
development and know what they can be watching for. And again, talk to their healthcare provider and act early if they have developmental
Yeah.
concerns.
And that does get us back to the whole notion of building resiliency. Being able to advocate, having knowledge, and having agency, which these tools offer, are some of the ingredients that go into helping an adult feel resilient, which in turn then they can help pass along to the little people in their lives.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you
Knowledge
for
is
that.
power. Knowledge is
It
power, right?
sure is. It
Knowledge is-
sure is. Yep. So Anna, as you think about it from your perspective with standing in the portal of Help Me Grow, what might you want to add?
Oh, I like that you put me in the portal.
Uh,
That makes me think of where our referrals come from, which is a good thing because considering the audience that might be listening to this, I want you to know, those of you listening, that you can make that referral. That referral, if you go to helpmegrowmn.org, the referral can come from parents, families, and friends, and of course, professionals, of course. The majority of our referrals come into Help Me Grow through the professional sector, child care workers,
Interesting.
educators,
Okay.
pediatricians. We probably get about 1,200 referrals a month from that group. We get about 150, 175 from family members and friends. People who,
Wow.
maybe take the reins for that parent that isn't quite feeling ready or just want to be the helper in the family.
Gotcha.
And then we
Okay.
get a small number, about 50 a month from parents. And so,
Okay.
of course, that varies month to month. I'm giving you some general numbers, of
Yeah.
course, but when we think about who might be listening, you really are at the steering wheel. You really have the opportunity to refer a child. And we really, by statute, we refer children who are maybe preemie babies
Yeah.
who have a diagnosis already that might lead to a delay or a disability. We, of course, refer children who might already have a substantiated case of abuse or neglect. And any children from marginalized communities, or separately, those who might be part of a family who is experienced some substance addiction or has
Yeah.
experienced in the past. So I think in winding this up, if you want me to, I would say, please don't hesitate to refer a child from your post, from your position. You can refer a child, their school district will contact the parent, and the parent will agree or disagree to that initial screening. But certainly, it's just an opportunity to connect with your district early on, like Jennifer said, get that baby on track and get the family the resources they need to have the most optimal outcome that they want. This is their journey. This is their joyful ride.
Right.
And with the support of parent connectors, I think that the ride can be whatever they want it to be, because we have enough people here to support that ride.
Right. And I just want to revisit that idea, the parent connecting program that you have in place, and encourage anyone who is working with families, if there are families that come from a marginalized population that may be a little less willing to work with someone from the majority culture, and you think would benefit from working with a parent connector who may understand those particular needs, values, beliefs from the community that the helper is working with, just take advantage of this program. I'm just gonna be a voter and a supporter of that, because I think, Anna, you have a model in place that is, we know, works, and research backs that up. Once again, thank you both.
Thank you, Deb.
You've brought so many things for me to think about, and I hope other of our listeners as well. And just a reminder to anyone out there listening, please go to both Learn the Signs, Act Early, and the Help Me Grow websites. The links will be posted on our webpage, but if you are looking for resources to share with families, you'll find them there and in multiple languages, which is super helpful. But again, thank you both, ladies, and thank you all for listening today. Take care.
Thank you, Deb.
Thank you.